Greetings, beautiful people. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, but there is always hope podcast, Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris is a Ph.D. prepared registered nurse, combat veteran, and Air Force retiree dedicating 26 years of military service. Within her 26-year tenure, Dr. Harris led nursing operations in large military treatment facilities, directly overseeing clinical operations and managed multi-million dollar budgets. She has extensive clinical and leadership expertise in various healthcare arenas. Dr. Harris utilizes her 30 plus years of professional expertise and knowledge of large federal healthcare systems to advise senior healthcare executives on enterprise level organizational transformation. As a dedicated change agent committed to the veteran community, Dr. Harris established Caring Souls for Veterans to help healthcare professionals lead fulfilling post-military lives. Her holistic approach honors their service and fosters resilience, enable medics to leverage their unique skills and continue making a positive impact for fulfilling post-military life. Caring Souls for Veterans upholds the fundamental human rights of respect and the right to live a fulfilling life. Dr. Harris strongly believes everyone deserves to feel valued and empowered, especially our nation's healthcare heroes. Her organization strives to show military medical personnel the care by building community and advocating for resilience and empowerment in the healthcare community. When Dr. Harris is not busy improving lives of others, she finds joy spending time with her 17-year-old son, Dylan, a junior cybersecurity analysis, and their dog, Des, the Irish Doodle. Welcome, Dr. Harris, to There Is Always Hope podcast. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bridgette, for having me. It's my honor to be here today. I'm super excited for this opportunity, and I love the work that you're doing, particularly at this time in our lives when hope is the foundation and so important for everything that we do.
Oh, well, I thank you again for being here. Dr. Harris, I know your time is valuable, so I thank you for being my guest today. So let's get started with our talk. Dr. Harris, is there one single incident or moment from your past that signified or hinted towards the work you do?
You know, it's funny you should ask that because I have these great conversations with my aunt, and we try to figure out what led me first to becoming a nurse. And we really couldn't put our finger on it. But the one thing that we do know is this opportunity for me to become a nurse, this is all God led because I have no specific thing that led me there. Well, we talk about some of the stories. I know one time when I was in sixth grade, my teacher that I adore greatly, and she just recently passed away, Mrs. Letha Washington. I remember telling her, driving her crazy, and she asked me, "What is it that you want to do with your life?" And I said, "I want to be a nurse. I want to help people." So I was clear then. And then with my aunt, she wore scrubs and she was a psych technician in the hospital. And she was one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And I know that that's what I tie all of this to. I say maybe because she was so kind and she helped everyone. And that led me to want to become a nurse. But I do know once I became a nurse, all of the things that God led me to do on my tour during active duty was just amazing because I would have never done this on my own. Being able to deploy in Afghanistan, he protected me there. And then being able to obtain a PhD, that was not in my vision as a child. So I know that that was all God driven. And then when I look at the advocacy work that I do for veterans, that all came about after I actually transitioned out of the military, and I felt disrespected, unseen, invisible. And I learned about all those isms in the world, and it really made me feel disregarded. And I wanted to make sure that no one else felt this way. So that's what led me there. And then I think about Dr. King's quote about darkness and how he says, only light can get rid of darkness. And I knew that I was a light and I wanted to figure out how I could be that difference maker in the world. So I was able to dig deep and find my light. And God allowed me to learn a little bit more about myself in that process. So those are the two things that got me into nursing, and then the advocacy for veterans and the women work that I do with Motivational Moments, Sister Society. That all came about right after retirement when I just wasn't sure about where I wanted to be, but I know I needed something. And I know if I needed something, someone else needed something. Just like the work that you're doing, you talk about hope. I needed something to hold me. So what I would do, I just created this Facebook group, Motivational Moments Sister Society, where I could have a community of women around me just being excited to support one another. We celebrated each other. I would send out motivational quotes all the time, trying to uplift. So, with me being lost at that time, that's how I was able to get into supporting the women population.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Harris, can you share a unique experience that shaped your journey as an advocate for veterans?
I can tell you a little bit about, I talked a little bit about the isms, right? Now, let me dig a little bit deeper why I chose to work with healthcare professionals, specifically in the veteran community.
Okay.
When I transitioned out, I realized that work that we did within the military health system, taking care of over 9.6 million beneficiaries, and that included the military members themselves and their family members and retirees. So we carried that burden, or the weight, I'll say, not the burden. It was the weight of taking care of all of these individuals.
Yes.
And what I realized is when I came out, who was taking care of us? Who was assigned to carry the weight of taking care of the healthcare professionals, the healthcare heroes, I call them, because they carry the weight of taking care of 9.6 million beneficiaries, but who's taking care of them? That's why I created Caring Souls for Veterans, because we want to show them, healthcare professionals, that there's someone caring for the caregiver. And the work that we do was just fundamentally set up just to ensure that they know that their work wasn't in vain, and we honor them as healthcare professionals, and more particularly as my brothers and sisters in arms. And I understand the work that they've done. So I had to create something for them, because they need to know that someone cares for them. And I know you hear the stories about the burdens that healthcare professionals face in general. So just imagine the burnout of caring for others on top of being leading in the military and going into combat zones that we're required to do. So it becomes a lot. So coming out and dealing with these things on my own made me see that there was a need to take care of our population. But I can tell you more about one program that I created. It's called Operation Rewire. And this is the retreat specifically for nurses. You hear the stories, like I said, about burnout. But nurses, we are truly the heartbeat of healthcare.
Yes,
There's
you are.
so many. Thank you. We do so much work in the healthcare space. And as I work through my dark times and my trials and tribulations, trying to figure out who I was and where I fit in and what I was supposed to do, I realized that there was work needed for other nurses. And I created Operation Rewire to really help nurses find their own value, find their own joy, and figure out who they were. Because what I have learned is you cannot pour from an empty cup. As nurses, we are natural caregivers. We care for everyone. We're empathetic. We love everyone. We're trying to help everyone, but we don't take the time to care for ourselves. So that's the one thing that I do. I take a step back and allow them to start identifying who they are, what matters to them, and really focus on their own resilience so that they can be able to support others.
Oh, that's so amazing, Dr. Harris. Thank you. I'm sure they appreciate you.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Harris, How did it change your perspective on future obstacles?
It was tough and it took a lot of work. The one thing I do know, I've accepted that life is hard. In the military, they just teach us you'll get through it, right? There's a space where they use this term, they call it suck it up, buttercup, and you move on.
Oh, no.
It's hard to deal with things and sit in a challenge because we're so busy moving so fast. We have so much going on, and it's the mission. Let's get to the mission, make it happen, get it done. We fail fast and on to the next. But after I retired, I had a chance to step back. And now I just accept that life is hard. Adulting isn't easy, and own it. Now that you understand that adulting's hard, you figure out what resilient strategies you can put in place to fix that.
Great. Amen.
I'm also reminded that anything worth having is worth working for.
Yes.
I learned that I can't pour from an empty cup. So because I can't pour from an empty cup, I intentionally now, in fact, I'm doing a resilience building challenge for myself right now. But I take the step back just to figure out how I can make myself better so that I can be better for others.
Oh, wow.
And that is something that I'm learning so much about myself on this journey. So I'm appreciating that. And then the other thing that I've appreciated is the power of the pause.
Okay.
Being able to be patient with myself and just being fully present, because I have a tendency to always worry about tomorrow or think 10 steps ahead of the situation. And
I was so guilty of that.
And my son, I drive him crazy because he'll say, Mom, why are you so upset? I say, because I remember what you did before. I see what's happening now, and I anticipate what's going to happen the next time. So that's what makes me so upset. But being able to pause and just live in the moment and be present then and just relax, right? Because nothing really is not that serious. It's not as serious as we make it out to be. And the other part is acceptance, accepting who I am, accepting that things can't be perfect all the time, because I did not know that I suffered from perfectionism, but I do. And I'm still working through that and just accepting that everything's not going to be perfect. The other part is understanding who I am, understanding what really matters to me and understanding what does not, understanding my strengths and my weaknesses and valuing my flaws, because everyone has them. It's okay. No one's perfect. The other thing that has helped me think about these future obstacles that are going to come my way is showing myself self-compassion. Self-sabotage is a real thing in my life because I could have did it better. I could have did it faster, and it could have been done by now. Always in my head, I have these conversations like, you should have done this differently. And now I'm just starting to realize that no, everything you do is exactly as God intended it. So don't beat yourself up. It has to stop today. And I also like to seek support, right? There are services out there for us. You do not have to be a one-man show or one-woman show to get things done. It's okay to seek therapy. It's okay to get assistance when you need it.
Yes.
Leaning on your loved ones and your village and your tribe to support you, that's really powerful. And the other part is being empathetic to myself, because we are so kind to others. If someone steps on your foot or they tell you one of their sad stories, we're completely in it. We want to help and figure out what we can do differently. For ourselves, a lot of times we're disregarding our feelings, trying to move on and not embracing where we are. So being empathetic for ourselves is really important. And then the empowerment, just understanding that God has equipped me with everything I need to do the work that I'm supposed to do. So I feel empowered to overcome those obstacles and not even seeing them really as obstacles, but really switching the lens on that and seeing them as opportunities for me to do something different or to do what God has intended for me.
Amen. Dr. Harris, thank you for being so transparent. I'm sure you are helping our listeners. That powerful, very powerful statements. Dr. Harris, can you talk about any specific strategies or resources you utilize that were specific to your work with the veterans?
Sure. As I told you, the one thing that disrupted my spirit was me feeling disrespected and feeling disregarded. So the one thing that I fundamentally stand on is that every person deserves to be respected and live fulfilling lives on their terms, not on anyone else's, right?
Yes.
And the strategies that we have, they're built in neuroscience and resilience principles just to help the military healthcare professionals better understand who they are in order to better contribute to their new civilian identity, if you will. So we focus on psychological safety and psychological health just in order to help them better navigate navigate these environments. So when I talk about resilient strategies, some of the things that we've done that I love the most is really taking the time to create a care plan. In healthcare, as nurses, we create care plans for our patients all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What I charge people to do now is to create a care plan for yourself. Create a care plan for your life so that as you identify your challenge, you identify steps that you're going to use to overcome that challenge.
Wonderful.
And also, what we like to do, that's how we actually redefine resilience. We also like to do resilience. We redefine resilience by helping individuals understand the manifestation of the military brain and how it actually works, and understanding that we've spent many years in a military environment, and it took several months to years to become indoctrinated to the military environment. So now your neural pathways that were strengthened while you were on active duty, they're not going to change overnight. So we give them skills to help them learn who they are and to build up a new neural pathway in order to be successful as civilians. So some of that is the journaling, the mindfulness, and we talk about even mindful eating. Because as a nurse, I'm so used to eating quickly.
Right. Right.
So now taking this opportunity to pause and really savor the moment and enjoy my food and taste it. Right. So the mindful eating, mindful walking, and even how you engage with people on a day to day basis. The art of listening is powerful, paying attention there. And also, I like to do paint therapy. That's been very helpful for people. We like to do, some people do vision boards. We do resilience boards. So you can see when you're looking at things, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? Look at that board and it should make you smile. So those are some of the specific things that we can do to help our veterans as they transition out of the military to find out who they are and learn more about themselves.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. An awesome program. Thank you, Dr. Harris. I used the term earlier when we was talking off camera. You are definitely a trailblazer. Trailblazer for our veterans, and we thank you. We thank you. So, Dr. Harris, how do you encourage others to live a life of purpose and hope?
Thank you for that question because as we mentioned, during these uncertain times, and God bless the people in Florida with all that they're going through, but during these times of uncertainty, all we have is hope, right? And just being able to breathe and hope that tomorrow's better or the next second is better. The first thing I like to tell people is you really got to know who you are, right? Because you can't keep on being hopeful, as what God says it in the Bible, right? Faith without work is dead. So really knowing who you are is so important. And that takes work because we get so caught up in the world. We get so caught up in all these things that are happening. But what matters to you at the end of the day? What makes you sad? What makes you happy? What makes you just feel like that giddy little kid from back in the day when you just when life was simple for you?
Yes.
That's the one thing that I always encourage people to do first and foremost. You got to know who you are.
Mm.
And then once you know who you are, embrace your story. Embrace what it is about you that makes you absolutely amazing. You are a genius in your own right. You are ambitious. You are amazing. You are a movie star in your own right. And you are a part of that. You are the central cast on that TV show. So just understanding who you are and then embracing that story and stop shying away from the story. I have conversations with my friends sometimes, and they always say, well, you don't go deep enough. And the one thing I always say is, I am as deep as I can get, and that's just who I am. And I choose to hold on to the positives in my life. No doubt that there were some negatives that I faced, but I love embracing all of the positive things that have come my way because my personality and who I am doesn't really allow me to embrace negativity because it hurts so much and it's so deep that it cuts me and I can't really function like I want to. So every negative in my life, I have shifted it to something positive and holding on to that positivity. But I do acknowledge what was negative about some of the things that happened during my upbringing. So you embrace that story and you get to shape it and you tell it how you want to tell it. The other part of that is finding your purpose. Once you can tell your story and you know who you are, you can tell people about your purpose and your passion. I always tell my son, wherever you spend most of your time and your money, that's what you're happy about. It brings you joy. So that's where you need to pause and say, this is my passion. And this is what brings me joy. This is what's going to help you figure out what is meaningful to you in life. Then I think about your support system. You have to have a support system that celebrates you while you're in the room and they celebrate you when you're out of the room.
Yes.
People that check in on you just because, I appreciate the term trailblazer. And a lot of times people will say the trailblazer is too busy. People say it gets lonely at the top, but everyone needs someone to check in on them. So making sure that you build a network of people that understand who you are, what you bring, and understand that you're human and you need someone to talk to you and reach out to you just because you're human. The other part I'll say is being able to practice that self-compassion, because in order to have that hope and to live that fulfilling life, you got to pause and not be so hard on yourself and understand that life is everything but linear. I wanted to be a nurse since I was 6 years old. It took me about 10 years to make that happen. I started out at a 4-year university. My parents couldn't afford to pay for me to go there. So I ended up at a community college. I have an associate's degree in business administration. And as I was graduating from this 2-year program, I said, well, I can't be a nurse this way. And those business people, they're so shrewd. I don't think I can do that. Well, I saw a sign one day and it said, be all you can be. And I said, well, I'll be all I can be in the Army. And my aunt said, no, you're going into the Air Force. Well, I joined the Air Force. And there it went, right? And the rest is history. But it took me 7 years of active duty before I could even go to nursing school. And then it was 2 years later before I went to nursing school. So life is anything but linear. So when you have a plan, understand that it may not transpire exactly as you envision. So being flexible and showing yourself some self-compassion is very helpful. Also, celebrating your small wins.
Yes.
We're always waiting for this big breakthrough, this big, great thing to happen. What about when you're losing weight and instead of eating the whole bag of chips, like somebody might do, you just go ahead and eat half the bag that day.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrate that. Now, that might be your quiet celebration, but it's yours. And you deserve to celebrate that because that was something that you took the opportunity to do. And the last thing I say is stay resilient. Really taking the time to practice and be prepared for any negative thing that's going to come your way. Because life, as a teenager, say life.
Beautiful people, I'm challenging everyone who is listening to persevere for hope. And how do you persevere for hope? By meditating, communicating, and demonstrating God's word in your life. As you demonstrate God's word, you find yourself exchanging helplessness for hope. You find yourself exchanging doubt and fear for peace and joy. Our next guest for There Is Always Hope podcast is Miss Diane Kukala. I want to shout out to the best podcast producer on the planet, Jay Wilson. If you need his expertise, his contact is podcastmechanic@gmail.com. Again, podcastmechanic@gmail.com. If you found something encouraging or you received a word of hope from this episode with Dr. Harris, please spread the word and also give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at There Is Always Hope Podcast. Also TikTok and YouTube at There Is Always Pod. My website is bridgettealfred.com. That's BridgetteAlfredLLC.com. And there you will find my published inspirational books. And if you would like prayer, my email address is evangelistalfred@outlook.com. I definitely will respond back to you. Remember that I am your biggest cheerleader, and I pray blessings upon blessings over you